Questions my students have asked me about God. Number 2, why do we follow the Bible's values when it's clearly anti-woman, pro-slavery, and homophobic? And doesn't the Bible also say that we ought to love our neighbor and our enemies? Before I begin the broader answer to this question, I have to start out by saying oftentimes questions, when they're asked this way, come from a place of hurt. And that may be you. Maybe you've experienced in your life people who are Christians, who claim to be men and women who love God, have treated you in such a way to where you feel like because of your sex, or because of your gender identity, or because of your race, that God must not like you. God must in fact hate you, be anti-you. And so a question like this comes from a place of deep pain, deep hurt in our lives, wondering, is God going to love me? Is God going to accept me? And because of that hurt, I have to start out by simply saying God is not anti-anyone, but God does have standards that he calls us to follow. And we're going to dig into that a little bit. We start with women. What does God say about women? Well, the accusation that we hear oftentimes that God is anti-woman comes from a place where we look at scripture in places like Ephesians 5, and we see that God says, wives, submit to your husbands. Husbands, love your wives. Husbands, you are the head of the wife. When you see passages like that, it can sound like, man, women are not equal to men. Women are less than men. Men are better than women in God's eyes. But that is not the case. Look with me at 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3. It says this, but I want you to realize that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God. Here's why that's important. The head of Christ is God. The Father and the Son, they are equal. But even in their equality, they have roles. This is the same thing that happens with men and women. Men have roles in the relationship, and women have roles in the relationship. And just because Scripture calls us to those roles does not mean that one is greater than the other. Men and women are equal. What's really being exposed here is God's value in the relationships between men and women. God values order and God values purpose. And that's what we see in how he's designed the homes, how he's designed men and women to relate to one another.